Good evening. Calling the March 2025 Public Art Commission meeting to order. Roll call. Well, let me start with Commissioner Gordon,
Present.
Commissioner Stern,
Present.
Commissioner De Garza. She's not gonna, okay, and Commissioner Smith
Present.
and Commissioner Miyagi. Okay. But I think we can move on, right?
Yes. You have quorum in the room, so we can.
Do we have any agenda changes, additions, and or deletions?
There are none.
Do we have any public comments?
Was off. I apologize. Commissioner Miyagi joined the meeting, and there are no members of the public in attendance.
Do we need to give Commissioner Miyagi an opportunity to speak and announce himself?
Ben
Oh,
Gaynor?
yes. Hi, I'm joining under whatever that ordinance is, AB. And there's nobody else in the room but me.
Thank you. So why don't we move on to the first action item, approval of minutes for February 20, 2025. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes from February 20th, 2025.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I'm gonna roll call. Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Stern,
Yes.
Commissioner De Garza.
She's not here.
Okay, yeah, sorry, okay, and Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
We are in the motion to approve the minutes. Roll call. Commissioner Waltuck, do you approve the minutes?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, do we have any city official comments?
We have a couple of comments to share with you this evening. So the first one, is we have an open call for summer interns to work primarily on the upcoming Code Art Festival. The application deadline for that is March 28th. So that is featured on the city website. And so we're looking forward to interviewing some great candidates for that. We've had some amazing interns in the past. And then the second item is the Greg Brown murals. So the completion of the restoration of the garbage collector and the boy fishing, which I think we have some images of. So there, doesn't that look much better? You may recall that there were quite a few. See, there was paint loss and cracking, and a lot of the pigment had blanched, and so they were able to get it to really resaturate. So here are some details.
That's great.
That's great. Oh, wow. Very nice. So there's the garbage collector. And then do we have pictures of boy fishing too, or just noted that it's also been touched up?
The boy fishing were just some minor touch-ups, so I did not bring them today.
And that's it for city official comments.
Great, thank you, great. So good to see the colors coming back. First action item for artists in residence, Alma Landetta's temporary artwork for King Plaza.
Thank you so much. And I believe Alma Landetta is on line joining us remotely. And so this evening, we're very excited to have them here to talk you through the conceptual design for the artwork for King Plaza as the conclusion of this year-long process, this residency, this intensive storytelling and input process has manifested in a conceptual proposal that staff is really excited to bring forward today. And so with that, we are going to turn it over to Alma to talk you through the proposal.
Where
Yes.
do they see us? There?
Yeah, I can see you all in the council chambers. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to get to share this concept with you all. I will go ahead and share my screen so that you can get to see what we have. All right. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Great. So what we have here is sort of a proof of concept for this sculptural idea. An image here kind of showing to scale what we're proposing and anticipating with that. And I'll talk a little more in detail about the dimensions, materials, and concept in just a moment. But wanted to give this initial image here. And then another image to pair with that, these are some of the style of drawing that I envision having on this polished stainless steel sculptural surface. So this like bold black contour line figure drawings, many of which are referencing archival images from the Queer Silicon Valley Archive, along with portraits that were made either during studio visits with folks or in one-on-one meetings and conversations in various parts of Palo Alto. Okay. I'd love to just share a little bit about the concept with you all, and I can kind of read some of this here for context. So while, as Elise shared, many months of doing research and connecting with folks, specifically focusing on the LGBTQ plus community in Palo Alto, I had many conversations that helped to inform this project. And through those conversations, just starting to recognize the ways that, you know, in talking to one person, that led me to another person who then maybe led me to a group of people. And so it was sort of like at first when it felt like there were not a whole lot of people coming out in response to the queries hotline. Once I was able to actually connect more one-on-one with individuals, it was each person that would tell me, oh, you got to talk to this person. And, oh, have you been to this place? And thinking about that in this way of how it felt that the community really was interconnected and almost like, you know, starting to create this tightening spiral through these conversations. And so the idea is to have an installation that celebrates that community and can be a reflection of that. Another key element of this is wanting to have the surface of the material be a reflective metal. So in talking to fabricators, trying to find what makes the most sense for that so that visitors of the site can actually see themselves reflected in the work, along with those bold black contour figure drawings. I should add that each figure is drawn with these distinct postures and expressions, and those postures actually will inform the cutout shape of the stainless steel sculpture. With that material, we're hoping that the surface can shift from a cool to warm tone as the sunlight passes over them. There's also a quality of that reflective material, not only reflecting the individuals, but also really reflecting the space that it's in. So while, you know, it may have a relatively large footprint, it still will ideally feel really integrated in that way. And so with the sculpture, there's also an invitation for visitors to actually enter into it. So as visitors follow the spiral inward, they would arrive at a payphone inside. And I think in some earlier conversations with folks, I had shared a little bit about Queries Hotline with y'all. But just to recap that, I guess, Queries Hotline was a Google Voice number that I had set up at the start of this residency, or maybe like a month or two in, that would allow folks to leave anonymous voicemails in response to the question, what do you wish residents knew about your experiences as a member of the LGBTQ plus community in Palo Alto? And so in the sculpture, there will actually be a physical payphone that is not a functioning payphone, but it will operate as a receiver. So folks can sit there. There will be a little bench. They can pick up the phone, and when they do, they'll hear these stories from individuals who have chosen to share through the queries hotline, along with some actual interviews that I got to conduct with folks. All of the stories will be anonymized. All of them around this central question of what it is to be queer and trans in Palo Alto. I'll also add that the queries hotline, the intention is to have that remain open throughout the installation, so folks can still call in even after the installation is up and have their stories contribute to what folks are actually hearing on the phone. The hope is that this creates a space where there's a combination of these collective narratives, right? So we've got the archival imagery, we've got these contemporary voices, and then there's also the individual who's passing through and how they're receiving and making their own imprint on that as well. So to get into the description of the actual fabrication, at its highest point, the sculpture will be approximately 7 feet tall, and at its widest point, the sculpture will be approximately 8 feet wide. The sculpture, we intend to make that out of, we had discussed whether aluminum or stainless steel made the most sense. And after talking to some of the engineers, have realized working with a polished stainless steel will be our best path forward. And as I mentioned, at the center, there will be this bench, which will also function as a structural support, as well as hopefully a nice aesthetic and an invitation to pause and sit with the piece for a little while. Okay, so next I want to show, let's see, here we go. Okay. So just to kind of show you a little more of what we envision that looking like. So these are some fabricated drawings that I was able to get from a fabricator that we'll be working with. So envisioning these as 5 rolled sheets that then fasten together. So you can see where one of those would fasten here, you can see where another would fasten here, and then there's also a second row happening up here. Again, the bench inside would be secured and welded in place. So you can see what that bench would look like here. And the cutout of the figures and an approximation of what that will look like here. And disregard this like aluminum and stainless steel because we've actually pivoted to having everything stainless steel now. So yeah, I think that is all of my visuals that I want to share with you all. I would be more than happy to answer any questions or if there's anything I could elaborate on. But yeah, just so excited to get to share this with you.
Thank you so much. This is a beautiful project. I have some questions regarding the hotline content. How many recordings are there and how long will be the recordings be? And is there going to be an index or is it just going to be, when you pick up wherever the recording is?
Yeah, the intention is to have it be a loop that's constantly going. So you might pick up at one point and hear one story that then if you pick up, if you put it down and pick it up again, it wouldn't start at the beginning. It would just be a constantly rotating story so that you might get any one at random. And currently we have about an hour, maybe a little over an hour of audio. That's unedited. So, we could consider trimming that so that it's, maybe snippets from each person rather than the like full extended unedited version. But as of right now, there's about an hour in total.
And are we treating it, so I understand it's anonymous, and, are we taking precautions to address any privacy or confidentiality concerns by voice treatment or something like that?
No, there's no intention to do any kind of voice treatment. There is a disclaimer in the voicemail. So when folks call into the queries hotline, there is a disclaimer saying that this, the audio recorded is what we intend to use in a public art installation on King Plaza in Palo Alto. And so folks are aware that that's happening. And there's the ask that they keep it anonymous by not sharing personal information. There is one instance where someone has shared a name and I've considered wanting to scrub that so that there's no names. But otherwise everybody has eliminated any like specific details that might reveal things.
Great. Thank you so much.
I have a question. Um, for the payphone, is there going to be any prompt to pick up the receiver, or is it going to be just kind of intuitive that people would be curious and pick it up?
Yeah, I love that question. We're still kind of fleshing that out. The fabricator that I've been working with, this is a question we've been kind of toying with. Personally, I like the idea of having some text to be able to give the context of what's there, not only to invite folks to pick it up, but also to give I think it can often get overused, but like a content warning, just to recognize that some of these stories are hard to hear. They're not all super joyful stories. And so wanting to make sure folks are aware of that going into hearing them. Yeah.
Also, the project looks beautiful. I'm very excited to see it installed. So thank you for all of your hard work. Looking forward to it. With the phone and making people aware of Queries Hotline, now people can continue to call in, which is fantastic. And so will you add those? And will it be a weekly thing or a monthly thing that you would add in the new callers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the folks I've been working with on this fabrication team, who is going to be like helping more with the electronics around that. That is something that I need to flesh out with him more. It's unclear if it's going to be something that like essentially is in the cloud where I can be automatically, or I can manually be putting that in, or if it's something that I'm going to have to, maybe it's on some sort of like a physical chip that then I have to like come down to Palo Alto, upload that. It's those are some technical questions that I personally don't have the answers to yet, but I'm thinking about as well. So I think the hope would be to get it updated on a weekly basis, but it might be depending on the labor involved, something that happens more on like a monthly basis.
Okay, that's great. And I think where the phone is, there'll be information on the hotline, so people will find it easy to call.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Ben, I see you've had your hand up. Yeah.
I have a question. Thank you, Alma, for the presentation.
Mhm.
I have one kind of an easy question, one kind of a little harder question. First question, metal. And in the summertime, it can get a little hot there on the plaza.
Mhm.
How is that going to affect people as they go in and out? And if they touch the metal sitting down in that enclosed area with that warm metal or hot metal,
Yeah.
how will that be? How will that come into play?
Yeah, great question. That is a question that I would love to bring back to the fabricators to see if there are ways that we could subvert that, because of course that's something we want it to be, we want that invitation to want to sit to be ongoing regardless of the summer heat intensity. So it might mean installing some sort of like a cushion on that, or having there be, some intention of placing it in a place somewhere that we know will be more shaded. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because young kids walking by could just run up and touch it and grab it, and if it's warm or hot, they can get burned. So that's
Sure.
a concern. Now, the other question I have is a little tougher.
Mhm.
The current political situation as it is.
Mhm.
What do you see as the future? Could there be vandalism? Could there be calls to the queries hotline that are not in support of any of that? It's just seems to be getting worse. So,
Mhm.
what precautions maybe can you take
Yeah.
for things
Yeah.
like that?
I think that's a super valid concern and question, and definitely one that I've been thinking about as well and have been discussing. So, in terms of vandalism, I think that's always a concern for public artists. And so, we want to think about what are some strategies that we can have. I know for me, historically, having done murals, like making sure that there's a coded treatment to prevent anything from like sticking on there that we couldn't just easily scrub off. Certainly, I can talk to the fabricators about some way to maybe treat the metal so that we could do something similar to that. But then you run the issue of like, what if someone gouges into it or so, I think vandalism is always a variable for any public art. And outside of hate speech and like experiencing targeted hate in that way, I have always considered it to be, an invitation to have a dialogue with that place and community where the work lives. And so for me, when work is vandalized, and I fortunately, knock on wood, haven't actually experienced that in any of my public artwork. But with colleagues that I've talked with about this, it's almost treated as like a dialogue. So it's just like, okay, this is how this community is responding to this. So how am I responding to that, right? I can try to just rub it off, but they're going to come back and they're going to do it again, right? So clearly this is like a conversation is how I would want to think about it. And maybe that means then like coming back to do some workshops at the library, or, having an invitation for folks to like share what that's bringing up at a city council meeting, maybe. I don't know, but I personally feel pretty open to that. In terms of the hotline, it's very intentional that we're not making that live, right? So it's not something where people can call in and right away it goes to the phone and anybody could pick that up. We're screening all of those calls. And again, fortunately, there haven't been any calls that have been hateful. Um, They've all been people sharing their lived experiences. Some stories have been hard, but they haven't been calling to say full targeted things at me or any other queer or trans people. So hopefully we keep that up. But sure, that is definitely a concern. And I think like keeping that um, um, barrier, I guess, between the collection of the audio and the sharing of it publicly, I think is going to be essential.
And I just
Because
want to share that it's also, staff is keenly aware of the current environment and is very committed to this project and committed to maintaining the project. We have a lot of experience with maintenance. Knock on wood, we've had a great track record. This is right in front of our city hall. The police department's right here. And so we will be carefully monitoring it, maintaining it. And the queries hotline, in fact, when it first went live, we had discussions with Alma about, would they prefer that staff does an initial screening in case there is that kind of hateful speech? So that's something that's an ongoing dialogue between staff and the artist. And I just want to assure the commission that we understand the environment, and we're hoping for the best and hoping that this really opens an opportunity for fruitful conversation and exchange.
one of my concerns is that as this project gets more well known and gets more out into the public and outside of Palo Alto, that you can have people coming in from outside Palo Alto to vandalize or do something to the sculpture. It's I know the Black Lives Matter mural had a guard there for a while, so, maybe something like that. But that's just a concern that I have, especially with the political climate there right now.
The other concern, Alma, you brought up a good point, which is disclaimer for content. I can imagine because there's no restriction and there's no one monitoring who has access to the audio. And sort of a headline that sort of writes itself is, this is available. My 4-year-old was climbing, and this is the content that he or she heard or they heard. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I think, that just writes the headline. And I wonder if there's something we can do to address that potential concern.
Sure. Those are all great concerns and questions. And what we're here with you this evening to show is the conceptual design, and all of this feedback is really helpful so that then we can go back as we go into detailed design to consider all of these items.
Yeah, and maybe I'd be happy to play a little bit of the audio tonight if that would be helpful for folks. I should clarify, this is obviously subjective. I'm listening to audio that I personally feel I would want to have a heads up, like, hey, before I listen to this, there are mentions of X, Y, or Z, and those specific content warning pieces that I'm kind of flagging are all around self-harm, and in some cases suicidal ideation. And so I know this is something that is a real issue in Palo Alto, as it is nationally, with trans youth specifically. And so rather than censor that, I think it's important to, elevate these stories. That said, yes, of course, like I I would also want to make sure that if a 4-year-old is picking that up, that they have a parent with them to contextualize, not to say they can't hear that, but I think it's important to recognize like this is what we're all swimming in right now, whether or not you're personally affected. This is the community that we're in. And so how are we showing up for these people? How are we responding to that? But yeah, I'd be happy to pull up some of those files. Let me pull up my audio.
And while Alma's looking for that, I also wanted to clarify that part of the work they have done is putting together a resources list. So it's phone numbers, resources, groups, support groups, and that will be made available adjacent to the artwork in some form as well, because we want to make sure that those resources are readily available for anyone should they want them.
Yeah, I have.
They're being added to the website, I think, next week.
Yeah. Yes. I have a file here that I can that I just pulled up that I can play. I believe this is one from a parent sharing about her trans daughter. So I'm gonna go back to sharing my. Let's see if I do this. Hopefully, it also does my audio. Let's see. I'm gonna start playing, and can somebody just let me know if you can hear it?
Hi there. I'm calling on behalf of my.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna go back to that. Okay.
Hi there. I'm calling on behalf of my 7-year-old transgender daughter. Last year, she came out publicly that she is a girl, and her public school did not accept her for who she is. There was a teacher at the public bathroom making sure that she was going still to a boys' bathroom. She was bullied. And one of her classmates told her that she was going to hell for who she is. My little girl was so stressed out. She ended up in a hospital for over a month. And all that stress caused her a heart condition that we're still dealing with today. It is sad to know that even here in the most progressive, not supposed to be most progressive and inclusive town, people are still not as open-minded and understanding of transgender community and allowing children to be what they want to be. Thanks.
Okay, so this is what I want to make sure people are aware, right? That this is a story that I think is important to share, and it's really hard to hear. So I think, we were really intentional about the design of this installation so that it wasn't just audio blasting on the plaza, but it's something that people can really sit with and even feel protected, right? Like thinking about this spiral as being something that people are encased in or protected in. So there are many more stories very similar to that of these stories, and there's a lot of hard stories. I would say, like 90% of the audio that I have is hard. And that's not, and I, even talking with Elise and Nadia around constructing these questions, I was kind of asking them like, gosh, I'm getting a lot of hard stories, and I really want to be careful not to reinforce this narrative that it's so hard for queer and trans people, because yes, it is. And it's also incredibly beautiful and joyful. And so how do we bring all of that into this? And so, we worked on coming up with some questions that might lead to more of stories around queer joy and trans joy. And there's some of that in there, but I've got to be honest, like it was really hard to get those stories out. So I want to honor how people chose to respond, to this question and the questions that were asked.
I imagine the format of a hotline and calling in somewhat anonymously is a safe space for people to express these very hard things. So I think by nature of the channel, you're allowing people to air that, which is incredible. But you're going to get the hard stories because that's what people need to release. So there is something very beautiful about that too, just allowing them that safe space to do that. And even though it's so heart-wrenching to hear what we just heard, I think if we can step back a tiny bit, it does makes me feel some joy that they had a space and place for release.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and some of the audio too is from one-on-one interviews, right? So there was more of a dialogue, and it was, it's with the promise of then sharing the audio anonymously, but they're sitting in front of me, right? And perhaps because there's a shared affinity of lived experiences, there's that ability to go deeper. And still there was a lot of like hard conversations happening there. So yeah, I appreciate you all letting me share that. I know this is really a heavy story to share with y'all, and apologize for bringing
No,
tears for anybody, or if
no,
recognizing that the content is difficult to sit with. So just appreciate the space to share that.
Alma, I'm just gonna sort of put this out there. First, no apologies. Obviously, we made this forum for the authenticity of these emotions to come out and these experiences to come out. Now, because this is an audio, and so we also have to prepare the audience because not many people that are going to be picking up the phone would have the training or the tools to process the information. And so, to your point, how do I contextualize this for the audience to prepare them for the content? And then maybe they're, like to what Elise was saying, we're going to give you additional tools to react to how, take this information and now I feel this way. And therefore, here are additional resources for me if I if I need this type of help, if I need that type of, opportunity to support, whatever it is, right? And then one more suggestion, which is I don't know if there's any way to play with the speed or skip. Like, this is a story that's really, really hard for me. And instead of just hang up, is there something I can sort of move forward faster? Because right, like I think you want to make sure that the audience, the person, because it's such an intimate experience, you're on the other side of the phone.
Yeah,
What control can we give this person?
I think I've been thinking about that a lot, right? This is hard content. And at the same time, for me personally, I was a little, I really appreciated when Elise and Nadia had offered, like, hey, do you want us to screen this? And I hadn't even considered that. I was like, oh man, like, wait a minute, maybe that's a good idea. But ultimately I was like, no, I'm happy to do it. If it becomes a problem, I'll definitely call on you for that. But let me just try and do it. And I think, for me, and I can just speak for myself, although it's hard to hear, it's affirming too, because I think for so many people, they're living these experiences and often feeling so alone and so isolated. And to know that they're in fact not alone, that they, have other people that they are in community with. And although no one should be experiencing what this young girl was experiencing at her school, I do think that there is a validation in it. And so it makes me question, like, who is it hard for? Who might it be hard to hear these stories? Is it the person who has these lived experiences and experiences it all the time, all the time, all the time? Or is it somebody who is outside of that and it's hard to hear because this is shocking? This is the first time they're considering this could happen. And I'm not saying that's what's happening for anybody in the council chambers right now, but just for anybody who might be experiencing the installation, right? Like, I think absolutely having there be the resources right there for people to know, like, if this felt hard because this is something you're experiencing, here are some resources to support you. And if you are someone who maybe isn't experiencing this, but also is not able to take on hard news, here's a disclaimer to say like, hey, these are some stories that are pretty hard. And if you're not up for that, maybe don't pick up the phone, you know? I certainly don't want to catch anybody off guard, and I don't want anybody to like, feel yeah, I don't want to catch anyone off guard. I don't want to trick anyone into listening to other people's trauma at all, right? I think it's more just like I want people who definitely don't have that experience to get to hear these stories, and people who do have this experience to feel a sense of community, you know? Um, and so for that reason, I worry like doing a fast forward would be, and this is just my like off the cuff response to that. I'd be happy to marinate on it more, but I think doing a fast forward would be doing a disservice to the person who left the message. You know, it's like wanting to make sure everybody's voice is heard. And also being intentional about how to ultimately edit all of these stories in a seamless way, so that we can keep people engaged with it.
Thank you.
Really incredible. Thank you. I think it's going to be so helpful for our community. So,
Okay. Do we have any more questions or comments? If not, do I have a motion to approve the Alma's conceptual design for an artwork to be temporarily placed on King Plaza as
So
presented
moved.
by number 2? All right.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll accept.
Okay. Commissioner Wolchok,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
yes.
Commissioner Stern,
Yes.
and Commissioner De La Garza. No. Oh, she's the one that's not here. I'm sorry. Commissioner Smith. I keep crossing the wrong one. All right. Okay. Next item, we have the allocation of.
Thank you, Alma.
Keep
you
up
all
with
so
the good
much.
work.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, we have allocation of funds for maintenance.
Yeah, it's tough to shift gears after that one. So this evening we have a large maintenance item for Albuquerque by Gail Wagner, which is the large red sculpture on Embarcadero Road in front of the Art Center. And so Nadia is going to present this maintenance item this evening.
Thank you for the introduction, Elise. Let me share the screen to show you some visuals of the artwork that we're discussing today as I just talk you through the staff report. And okay. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so we discussing one of the actually the largest outdoor sculpture in our city collection. You're looking at Albuquerque by Oakland-based artist Gail Wagner. So it's a monumental sculpture. It was created by the artist in 1982, and it was acquired by the city the following year. It's fabricated in galvanized steel, and it's sitting on a large concrete pad, and it can be viewed along Embarcadero Road just outside of the Palo Alto Arts Center. The sculpture is quite large. It measures at 12 feet high by 30 feet wide and over 13 feet in diameter. Given that the sculpture was created in the early 80s, it's actually as old as I am, and over its lifespan, it has undergone a few treatments, refurbishments. You had a chance to see the staff report. I will probably just mention some of the more recent ones. Let's start with 2011 when the Public Art Commission, the Public Art Program was allocated an annual maintenance budget for the care of its growing and aging collection. So after that year, that was when the sculpture was first, I believe, refurbished completely. In 2015, when we did a comprehensive review survey of the collection with ARG Conservation Services consultants, they provided a comprehensive report about the condition and also recommendations for the treatment of Albuquerque. And that report featured recommendations about, given the environmental conditions that the sculpture is in and just the material, its nature, bright color of red. So just on average, that the sculpture would need to be completely repainted roughly every 10 years, depending on whether it shows signs of deterioration. So following that report in 2015, of course, we kept monitoring the sculpture, occasionally pressure washing it, spot cleaning it. In 2017, we came to the commission to request funding for its complete refurbishment, and that project was completed by a painting contractor with some experience in working with public art, outdoor sculptures. And so that project took place in the summer of 2017. Shortly after, just, due to the unique conditions and its sheer monumental size, it's a complicated, challenging project. In order to paint a sculpture on that of that size, ideally you really want to move it offsite in more controlled environment, but it was out of the question, to move a sculpture of that size. So the project had to be had to take place on site. Weather condition, temperature fluctuations really played a factor in how the painting job was sort of, started aging shortly after. So we started observing some initial cracks, and which over time led to more sort of pronounced losses. And these are the images you're looking at, especially this one on top. This is the sculpture back in 2017, shortly after the refurbishment. And the image below is from the conservation survey, which took place earlier this year. Right, so some detailed views, especially the image below, showing those areas of cracks and losses that I pointed out. And just some areas of corrosion and damage. So shortly, I want to say a couple of years after that refurbishment in 2017, we had an unfortunate incident with maintenance equipment scratching, I guess, taking an unfortunate turn and hitting the sculpture and just leaving some scratches. To address any incidental damages in the future, and also just following the initial recommendations by ARG, we came back to the commission, requested funding, and expanded the concrete pad. So the maintenance equipment cannot really take any sharp turns or get too close to the sculpture. And that actually really proved to help and secure the situation in the future. So we continued to observe the sculpture over the following years. And this summer, we reached out to a Bay Area conservation team, Preservation Arts, to provide another comprehensive report and treatment proposal for the sculpture. So it was one of the criteria that we discussed when we initiated our conversation with the conservators, it became clear to us that in order to really secure successful outcome of a refurbishment project on that scale, we need to create we need to maximize the control over the environment, just to kind of just provide more details so you understand what I mean. The sculpture, right, the round disc. So if the time frame of when actually a painting can happen, it has a very short window, because early in the morning, after a cold night, there's a lot of dew on the surface of the metal, and as the sun comes out, the surfaces are drying out, but by about 11 a.m., the metal surface is becoming too hot to work on, right? So some sort of tenting, controlled environment need to be created to really make sure that the painting process and all the systems are applied properly. Okay, and so when we received the condition report that you will see as part of the packet today, the conservators did recommend that it was time to repair some areas of visible corrosion and completely refurbish the sculpture. So the on-site repainting of the sculpture would be taking place behind a fence and in a tented sort of situation. And also we talked about appropriate painting systems that would also extend the life expectancy of the sculpture. So we were talking about exploring different dynamic painting systems, and looked into creating sort of enclosed, controlled environment for the sculpture. The preliminary estimate that we received as part of that report was just over $34,000. And hence the recommendation to the Commission today. We recommend that the Public Art Commission approve funding in the amount up to $37,000. So we have some wiggle room, as we're also looking at just the project from Shade Solutions. Exactly. Thank you. Should the funds be approved today, we're looking at completing this project on site between September and October. That's where the weather conditions are most ideal for a project of that scale and nature. Let me know if you have any questions about the condition reporting that you are looking at, or just the process.
Great. Thank you so much for the detailed introduction and information. I guess the first question I have is, I do remember approving this, I think back in 2017. I have been on this board for this commission for this long. Do you remember how much that was?
Yes, I believe it was about $11,000.
And so we're not using the same.
No,
and we're
actually,
changing
we discussed potential subcontractors, and the conservators have a particular painting contractor in mind, somebody who they work closely with. So in this case, the painting on site would be taking place under a very close supervision of the art conservators in terms of, particular timing of, the quality of cleaning, making sure that there's no, remaining corrosion, like rust, that the primer is applied in a particular, manner and particular thickness, right? The timing between application of coating is happening, in accordance with the specifics of the painting systems and etc.
So just a couple of things. 11,000 2017 adjusted for inflation. Like today will be roughly, it's like maybe 20,000 or something like that. I just call it that. But so today when we're spending 34,000 to 37,000, how long do we think this restoration will last for?
I just want to make a brief clarification before Nadia gets into the timeline. It's the last time we hired a painter.
Yeah.
And staff was going out there and doing the best we could to manage that.
Yeah.
This is also paying for the conservator's time to be there on site, really making sure that everything is sanded down to the proper place, that the primer is the proper thickness. So we feel confident that we will have a much better outcome this time, and that explains some of the cost escalation as well. And I'll let Nadia
Great.
speak to the time expectancy.
Right. I mean, in general, given that it's an outdoor piece, it's a red sculpture. We're looking at like really, just appropriate, commercial types of painting system. But I mean, in general, I think between like around 10 years is really just a reasonable expectation for outdoor sculptures because we're close to the bay, it's also the salt in the air, it's the fumes from the passing vehicles. There's a lot of sort of elements that play into this.
Thank you.
Am I understanding correctly that, is it going to be painted overall or only parts of it?
No, it will be a complete refurbishment.
Okay, so even parts that are in good condition, we're just going to be doing an even overall.
Absolutely.
Okay,
100%, yes.
thank you.
Nadia, quick question. I think in the past that when the lawn was watered, that the sprinklers were hitting that sculpture. Has that been changed so the water doesn't hit it as much or not at all?
Yeah, thank you for this question. We actually worked with our colleagues in Parks and Open Space to address that issue. So I don't think it's been an issue. Before we could kind of see some organic growth on the back of the disc, and it's not the issue anymore, right? So yeah, like the water is not adding to the damage of the sculpture.
Another quick question too. The parts of the sculpture that go down into the concrete, is that a problem or can that be a problem in the future where water could seep down into the concrete and corrode that metal that's actually down in the concrete?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. And actually, what you're looking at here, let me just, if you see my cursor, the very bottom, the sculpture, there are actually tiny little drill holes that allow for any excessive water to drip out, So it will be one of the aspects that the conservators will be working on, just to kind of like clean it out and make sure the drainage is sufficient. But yeah, there is existing drainage system within the metal of the sculpture that allows any any water to escape.
Any additional questions or comments? Well, it sounds like we've been very thoughtful about the learnings from the last time and are creating a fairly comprehensive update in how we're restoring it this time, both with the paint system as well as sort of the container to control the temperature, and then as well as getting additional outside help to supervise the process to ensure that the restoration is sort of more on point. So, thank you so much for the careful update and adopting the learnings from last time. So hopefully this time, the restoration will last even longer because it is certainly a beloved piece.
I'm sorry. Could I have just one more question? What's the question? Flew out of my head. I remember. What is the budget? What is our annual budget for conservation? Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for this question. It's right. So the annual budget for maintenance that we get allocated is, I believe, is 30. It will be 39,000 next fiscal year, and it's a considerate amount of money for just one sculpture. So the the solution we sort of found how to provide care for this sculpture, but also not abandon any other artworks in our collection, is we're actually staggering the budget allocation between 2 fiscal years. So we're gonna encumber the remaining funds into this contract from this fiscal year, and we've been proactive and also very, I don't want to say scrappy, but just we do as much as we can in-house, to be fiscally conservative. So we're planning on encumbering the remaining funds in this fiscal year for this art project, maintenance project, and then come July, add the remaining amount, and still have funding, set aside for any planned treatments and anything that may come up.
Do we have any access fund that we can dip into in case of any like emergencies, like if like a piece falls off or something like that?
Right, there's insurance, and we do keep pretty close tabs, so that should not be an issue.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the allocation of funds in the amount of up to 37,000 for the conservation treatment and repainting of Albuquerque?
I move to allocate up to 37,000 for the conservation and treatment of the sculpture Albuquerque.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Fantastic. Roll call. Commissioner Miyagi?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolchok?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
And Commissioner Stern?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Any public letters?
Not this month.
Do we have any commissioner questions, comments, or announcements?
Hopefully you all got the email regarding with the information about SB 456 that is moving forward. So take a moment to read the email, and if you are so inclined to participate and weigh in on that item or pass it on to others, feel free to do so, please.
Anything else? I think we have one follow-up on the ad hoc committee for the RICO, for the Code Art initiative. There's an email about that.
From the ad hoc?
Yeah, from the ad hoc.
There's not a report out from the ad hoc at this time.
No. What I mean is just follow up for individuals that are participating in the ad hoc committee to respond to your email.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
great.
would be great.
Okay, and going. Okay, meeting adjourned.